Well, I've been to all of three of the resorts on the island, Puerto del Carmen, Costa Teguise and Playa Blanca, over the last 10 days or so, and I can tell you it's looking absolutely fantastic. Everyone's waiting for the big summer influx, and we're ready to see you, hopefully very soon. But let's do the news now, and any of you who've been to Arrecife, to Charco San Ginés, will know that there has been in the past a beautiful waterfall feature there, which runs down one side of the Charco itself, and that was originally designed by Cesar Manrique, but it's been dilapidated and out of use for many, many years. The good news is the Cabildo have agreed to fund a full restoration of it, and they're putting two new water pumps in and a whole new system that will create this beautiful waterfall over a sort of rocky facade. And it has two effects. One, it makes a lovely calming noise, but two, it actually cools the air around it because waterfalls have that effect. So it will create a nice little oasis through the hot summer along there once the work is done. At the moment it's gone out to tender. We don't know exactly when it will start, but hopefully very soon. Now, there's a story that's always fascinated me, and it's about the origin of the very first people who came to the Canaries. And it's known that if you look at old Canarian families, they have DNA from the Berbers, the African tribes that are 100 kilometres away from us here in Lanzarote. What we've never been able to do in the past is accurately date when they first came to the islands. And there's a scientific project going on now which has started to achieve that by using carbon dating on various artifacts and implements that have been found around the islands. And what we've learned so far is that Lanzarote was the first island that was populated by these Berbers, and it was in the first century after the birth of Christ, so the year 100 and something to about the year 300 and something. And they've been able to work out that these original families who came from the Berber tribes gradually populated each of the other islands in turn, finishing up in Gran Canaria, which was the last one to be populated, and the earliest artifacts they found there are perhaps 300 or 400 years later. Now, what's always confused the historians is that something happened here that also happened in the Hawaiian Islands, and that is, once they were first populated, there was a long period of around 1,000 years where they were basically forgotten. Nobody knew they were there, and the new inhabitants just carried on in isolation, populating the islands out. And there's a rumour or a theory, if you like, that suggests that these first Berbers were not actually able to sail, and they were brought here by the Romans, who used them as slaves to mine salt and stuff like that. That's not definite, but it's a strong possibility. And what may have happened is at the end of the Roman Empire, when the Romans left, the Berber people were left here. They still didn't know how to sail, so they just remained on the islands and, perhaps used rafts to get from one to the other and stuff like that. But it's quite interesting, and I think we'll learn more on this over the coming years. And of course, what happened next was that in the Middle Ages, the first people navigating from Portugal, Italy, the United Kingdom and so on were able to discover the islands again, and the indigenous people that had been living here for 1,000 years in complete isolation. I'll keep you posted on this because I think it's really interesting to understand the background to the original inhabitants of the Canary Islands. Now, if you watch these bulletins every week, you will know that I've spent all winter telling you that we'd had record high temperatures, and the winter was absolutely magnificent here. For the first time now, I'm able to report a temperature drop, and that happened in June, and it's the first time for, I think, around a year that the temperature versus the previous year has fallen. It was only by 0.2 degrees. So it's a relatively small decrease, but it does kind of reverse the trend of average temperatures consistently increasing year after year. And the Met Office here, AEMET, have come up with their explanation for it, which is that we had a corridor of cold air which sort of sat to slightly to the north of the islands, which brought the average temperature for the month of June down. That corridor, they are saying, will be scooting off into the far northwest in the next few days, and from the middle of next week we should have at least average, if not higher than average temperatures. I mean, having said that, it certainly hasn't been cold. There was a top temperature recorded last month in Arrecife of 28.1 degrees. We were out and about yesterday afternoon and it was over 30 in Arrecife. So we're having pretty much normal summer weather, but it was very slightly cooler in June than normal. Unemployment on the island continues to fall. The number of unemployed people here fell down to around 7,700 last month, which is the lowest figure since March 2008. And those of you who know the island well will know that in 2008 we went from a boom period into what we call the crisis here, or el crisis here, which was a deep recession which affected most of Europe. But good news on the unemployment side, although the difficulty at the moment for employers is finding people to do the jobs to fill the vacancies that they've got. Also good news, cruise visitors are up 12% versus last year. Last year we had a record number of cruise visitors to the island. I think it was 504,000 to be exact. It's expected that we will have another record this year. The way the cruise season works here is it tends to be winter based, so it's pretty much finished now for 2024. There'll be a lull through the summer because all the ships move off to the Med, and they'll be carrying passengers all around the Mediterranean through the summer, and then at the beginning of next winter, back end of September, beginning of October, when it starts to get cold in the Med, they will move themselves over to the Canary Islands again and base them in this area for the winter. So October, November, December will be extremely busy months on the island for cruise visitors. While we're talking about cruise, there was a comment when I mentioned the number of cruise visitors coming to the island a couple of weeks ago in this particular news bulletin. And it was sort of scathing, saying something like, well, why do we want cruise visitors? We shouldn't have them, and all that kind of stuff. It's worth noting that cruise passengers are really, really good business for the island because they don't use any of our infrastructure. So the passengers don't come here and, take up hotel rooms and use water and electricity and all those other things because they're self-contained on their ships. They're only here for a day. A significant number of them go on paid excursions with local companies here that will take them to Timanfaya or a guided tour of La Heria or whatever, and obviously that brings income to the island. Some others will hire a car from a local car hire company and go for a little tour on their own of the island, and another proportion of them will wander around Arrecife spending money in the shops, bars and restaurants there. So they're creating income for Lanzarote, but they're not using up any of our resources. And I mean, we're limited. Unlike places like Sorrento, for example, that have a huge harbour where 3 or 4 or 5 of these behemoths can drop anchor and tender people ashore, we can only take 1 or 2 cruise ships at a time, so the numbers aren't excessive or likely to cause damage to the island. So it is good for Lanzarote. This is the point at which I should ask you, please, if you haven't already, to subscribe to our video channel, because we love to have more and more viewers. We're trying to grow our YouTube presence to be as successful as our online Lanzarote information presence. If you like the video, please give us a like. If you've got a comment, just leave it below. I read every single comment that we get on the channel, and if there are any questions in there, I will always answer them. So always happy to hear from you, and thank you so much for watching this and being a subscriber and a liker and a sharer of our information. Now, you'll know that we've had some issues with water on the island that has been going on for months and months and months now. The problem we had is that one part of the old desalination plant that provides most of the water for the island that's the one based in Arrecife by the power station, went down, and it was that third of it that went down is irreparable. They are currently constructing a replacement for that, but the good news is that in the meantime there has just been sign off on having another portable desalination plant put in to increase the daily supply, so that areas particularly in the north of the island that have been having regular cuts will no longer need to do so. And it will also mean that the farmers can get some irrigation water, which is much needed here. These portable units are basically in a container, shipping container, and they come ashore. They basically just have to plug them into the power supply and put a hose into the ocean to draw water in and connect it up to the water supply at the other end. Fingers crossed that will be operational in the very near future. And that's it for the news this week. Thank you so much for watching. We will be here at the same time next week, and we'd be delighted if you'd come along and see whatever we need to tell you next week about news from your favourite island. Bye for now.